Welcome back to Seeds. I'm Andy. I'm here with Summer. We've been walking you through some of the basics in Christianity, some of the things that we just want to remind you of, or maybe you're brand new to Christianity and you need to be able to really focus in on the things that are going to really build you a good foundation. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about friendship, something that's significant to both Summer and I. As we're both in ministry, and friendship looks a little different when you're in ministry than the norm. Now, that doesn't mean it has to look that way. It just means it does look that way. And we've been struggling through that whole thing and working that out. And this morning, we want to chat with you about one of the things that we have been talking about overall in the church today, and that is fear. What are the fears that come along with friendship, right? So, Summer, when I bring that up and I say, what are some of the things that people fear about friendship? What immediately comes to your mind?
Well, the first thing you just said kind of triggered my mind a little bit in that is you said that in ministry, friendship looks different. And my question is, should it?
And my answer is it shouldn't.
It shouldn't,
And
right?
your answer to that
It
is
definitely shouldn't, because we should all be doing ministry of some sort, right? We have titles that we put on things and people, right? We say pastor or leader or teacher, whatever, right? Deacon and all these things that we put church labels on. But really, Jesus said that we are all responsible for spreading the gospel and doing ministry. And we all have callings in our lives and all have things that we are supposed to be doing as ministry and serving and all of these things. So aren't we really just a bunch of people who are supposed to be friends and love each other?
Yeah, well, I think that you're exactly right. And I think when we talk about that in context of fear, that's one of the things that happens is we fear that we're breaking some rules, that we're not doing it right,
Right.
that we're out of the parameters of what it looks like in this situation. So I don't think that's just ministry. You were in management, right? And for a company. And even there's these rules of friendship between management and employees and all of these different things and we start, like you said, labeling things.
Yeah.
Once you start labeling what something should look like, people believe like that's the only way you can do it.
Like I've kind of dealt with this my whole life because I'm a different kind of girl. I look very girly, but my whole life I was kind of like a tomboy when I was a kid, and like even my aunt will tell you that like I wasn't really like a girl. Um, and I hung out with a lot of boys. Like I broke my finger in seventh grade playing football with boys, and I'm a type A personality. Like I have leadership skills and gifts and things like that. So like I just get along better with boys. And I mean, then as an adult, oh no, like wait, girls and boys can't be friends anymore. It's so funny. Like when you see little kids playing, like they just find who they like and who they get along, and they're just besties. And it doesn't matter if it's another boy or a girl or whatever. Like they just kind of love who they love and treat all the kids the same. And we start to change things as we get older and we put all these rules. And yeah, I've had to deal with that my whole life. Like when I was dating, I would tell people, hey, my best friend's a man, are you okay with that? And they would say yes or no, and then we continue dating. And like my maid of honor in my wedding was a man
Yeah.
who's not gay, like a straight man. And is that abnormal or allowed? I don't care. Like I'm still like that little kid who is, I'm gonna love people and I'm gonna have friends and we're just gonna do it. And I think we need to apply that to church and everything else. Like it doesn't matter what labels we put on stuff.
When we start fearing, we tend to miss out on things.
Totally.
Right? So we fear how other people are going to perceive something. We fear how other people have perceived it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we withdraw from someone or someone's, right? And we don't do things the way that we should or that we want to do. I can remember, as a kid, you'd go to these church services and there would be people singing in a choir, right? And they'd have these combined choir moments and things like that. And always you'd have some person that was singing with all her heart, joyfully to the Lord, and didn't fit in with the choir. And you just could imagine that somewhere along the line, somebody's having a conversation with them and
Right.
saying, you know, you don't really fit in a choir because you're saying, and then we watch that person change. They withdraw from singing with all their heart because somebody told them that they don't sound right with everybody else, or that it doesn't look right. And you know, we do that in all kinds of different places within Christianity. We look at things and say, you're not fitting in the whole group thing here. Yet we look at Jesus, and he did this consistently. He wasn't fitting into the choir. His disciples weren't fitting into the choir. And so we end up with Jesus saying, listen, you're not my disciples if you don't follow me. Do it my way. He didn't say, hey, listen to me, but do it the Sanhedrin's way. He said, do it my way. That brings a lot of fear when we look at the whole thing and say, Jesus did some pretty odd things, right, with people. So besides the fact that you've said, like, you developed the ability to not care what other people think, which is a little hard for most of us to swallow, those of us who are people pleasing, what are some ways that we can get over that initial fear of what this friendship's going to look like, or you know, what it's going to be, or all of those kind of things?
I mean, the real key to everything. I mean, any fear or any problem that we have is God. I mean, we have to really love God first, and that means, like, he's actually first in your life. It's not like, oh, I love God. Like, I thought at one point in my life I loved God, and I realized I didn't really love him right. You know, I thought I loved him, but he wasn't first in my life. And I think when we do put him first and actually focus on him and what he wants, and you really dig into what Jesus wants from you, it's he says it over and over, to love people. Like, it's just love people. That whole, like, make a t-shirt, love God, love people. We say it all the time, but, like, we don't do it, you know? And it's just, if you know you're doing that and you are really loving God, and that equals you loving everybody, what do you have to fear? You're doing exactly what God tells you to. You're doing it right. And if you're confident in that, then there's literally nothing to fear. And that if you do have an instant of fear, you just pray about it and ask God, to convict you if there is a problem with something. And if he doesn't, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing it right, then there should not be a fear.
Yeah. Well, you can't love well, right, if you at all fear. Fear and love are completely on opposite sides of the teeter-totter. So if you want to love 100%, fear has to be all the way down, right? And yet we live somewhere in the middle of that all the time. You know, those moments when we can be carefree, we can just give somebody all of our love, and we don't care what their response is going to be. Yeah. We don't care what's going to happen, right? Those are great moments. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about, like, it's Christmas time, you know, and you get those goofy thoughts about, you know, paying for people's lunch and buying gifts for people. You know, it's a pretty safe thing to be able to take some money, give it to a cashier, say, hey, could you just buy somebody's lunch today? You don't have to face the reaction, the rejection. You don't have to face anything. You just give somebody else some money and let them love on it from a distance. You know, that makes sense to us. Like, hey, we should do that. Then we don't get any hurt. Somebody gets loved, but we don't get hurt. It's all good. But that's not what God asked us to do, is it?
No. And it's funny, because as you were talking about this, I'm thinking about, like, the fear in that. And, like, if we eliminate that fear, that means we have to 100% trust God.
Yeah.
100%. Because we're taking something that the world says we should fear, that we've always feared, and we're saying, all right, God, it's all in your hands. I have no control here, and I'm just going to do what you tell me to. And I think we don't do that in anything. Yeah. So it's like, ooh.
Yeah. So let me challenge you guys who are listening to a couple things, and Summer is going to kick into this as well. Last night, which is a Wednesday night for whenever this is aired, not a Monday night. Last night, we had the opportunity to have a prayer session at our church and have some people pray for us individually. And my specific prayer was pray about, like, listen, we can't do this thing well with fear. Like we can't love. And there's so much fear with COVID. There's so much fear with election stuff. There's so much fear just all around us. Getting hurt, people who, just things just haven't gone well in the past, and they just assume that that's the way the present's going to be. And it's funny when you ask people to pray for you and you really want what they're praying for. The peace and the joy that comes over you, it's a giddy thing almost, like you're just excited. And for one moment, you think you could conquer the world. You're not afraid of anything, right? And I don't know, what you do with that as time goes along. You have to keep upping that and keep saying to God, no, I prayed that I wouldn't have fear, right? Because situations are going to happen that are going to be, pretty scary in nature. But we can't love well if we fear. And my challenge to you would be that you do that exact same thing. Find somebody's to pray that you would have boldness, that you would have a lack of fear, especially this next few weeks before Christmas, and just what can be done with that whole thing. And then the second challenge that I would have for you would be take that boldness and do something really outside the box with it. Do something and love somebody really well in a way that you wouldn't maybe normally do that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I love someone you shouldn't. Like, especially in this church setting we keep talking about, like, a deacon can't be friends with a pastor, or whoever can't be friends, like at work where you can't be friends with your employees, right? Like, just love someone you're not supposed to and see what happens.
Yeah, so listen, next week you're going to get to hear, us talk about Christmas, and we hope that this is part of your Christmas challenge, that you prayed to be able to be bold this year, a lack of fear, get rid of that fear, and then do something crazy for God. So we'll see you next week. We look forward to talking to you about Christmas, our Christmas, and we'll catch you later.